Welcome to She Sells Radio. I am so excited. I'm so grateful that you are here. And if you're listening in real time, welcome to the new year. Oh my goodness. I don't know about you, but I am ready for this year. And obviously the past 2 years really now have been just such a change up of everything in our lives. And I've experienced the same. And I think the biggest thing that I'm excited for this year, and I want to hear from you, send me a DM. I'm at Elyse Archer on all social. What are you excited about? But for me, it's really about just allowing more good in all areas and really that mindset of let me see how good life can get in every single area. And one of the things that's required in order for you to see how good life can get and be open to that is having the financial resources to create a beautiful life. And that is one of the things I am most passionate about because I've seen the transformation in my own life when I started allowing in abundance. I've seen the transformation in my clients' lives as well. And that's really what this episode is about empowering you to allow in more financial abundance in your life this year and forevermore. And I will say, this particular episode, we're going to be talking about breaking six figures this year. So if you're not at six figures yet, you're going to be picking up on some really good tactical things and mindset things. So I want you to have a pen and paper to take notes. But I'll also say I work with clients at all ends of the income spectrum, from those just starting off, maybe they're new in sales, they're new in entrepreneurship, or those who are going for seven figures and beyond. And today we're going to be talking about, again, what I've seen from my experience are the biggest hindrances to women from hitting their first six figures. But you can take and apply these principles to whatever your income or your revenue target is in 2022. So I want you to listen through the whole thing because you're going to get some really good, like I said, both mindset and tactical elements that you can apply to achieving your financial goal for this year. Another thing I'll say before we get into it is that these principles do apply whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're in sales. So some of them are going to be maybe a little more applicable to my entrepreneurs out there. Never fear, there's a lot of good in here for you, regardless of what camp you're in. And I'm going to give you three mindset and three tactical pieces that you can use to apply to break six figures or more this year. So let's get into it. And we're going to start with the mindset because mindset is 95% of it. It really is. And the first thing under mindset is knowing that you're worthy. And this is something that certainly has tripped me up. Oh my gosh, it's absolutely tripped me up throughout my life. I found that with every next level, if I hadn't reached a certain financial goal yet, there was a part of me that didn't feel worthy of it. And so I really had to work at healing that part of me. And I see this in my clients too, but definitely for the women who I serve, and I do work with men as well. So I just want to say, regardless of your gender, I'm so glad you're here and I'm so glad you're listening, but I'm going to speak to my women today with this. With the women that I serve who aren't yet at six figures, there's definitely a piece of them that hasn't felt worthy of that before. And so, number one, one of my favorite affirmations, and this is something that I affirm every single day because we always need to remember, is I am worthy of everything I want and desire. And literally just soaking that in and knowing that, number one, you'll only get what you feel worthy of in this life. So if you want to be making six figures, but you don't feel worthy of that yet, it's okay. We're going to work to heal that, but you do need to feel worthy of it in order for it to come in / be sustainable for you. So that's it's kind of why, lottery winners, if they make a lot of money, they'll tend to go bankrupt within a few years because they weren't at that financial frequency themselves. They weren't at that level yet energetically. So they got rid of the money. So you have to feel worthy of that money. And there's so many different ways to practice worthiness. But for me, it's an embodied daily practice, everything from if you're watching the video of this, like buying myself a beautiful bouquet of lilies last night, when I was shopping at Whole Foods, just because they make me feel good. And I used to be someone who would scrimp on stuff like that and be like, oh, well, they're going to die in a few days and yada, yada. And I've realized you will always get what you feel worthy of. And I used to not feel worthy of that. And now I buy myself flowers all the time, because I have decided that I'm worthy of having things around me that make me feel good and that up level my vibration and how I'm showing up. Practicing worthiness in other ways, whether it's from, lighting a candle. This is a little thing that I do every night that I love. And actually every morning too, while I'm getting ready, is just lighting a candle in the bathroom while I do my self-care. And it's just a little thing that's like, I'm worth having this ambiance and this vibe. Saying yes to things. Like, I can't tell you how often I'll hear, this is never really something I've had a problem with, because I've always just been like, yes, of course I'll take the opportunity. But I hear this from a lot of women in the community, that a great opportunity will come and they'll say, oh, I'm not qualified. I'm not this, I'm not that. Like, take it, say yes to it. So like, make this, if you haven't read Shonda Rhimes' Year of Yes, make this your year of yes and practice receiving opportunities with a yes and feeling worthy of them, and receiving compliments. Stop deflecting compliments. If people tell you like, hey, you look beautiful today, and you're like, oh, I rolled out of bed or whatever, like, how we've all said that, right? We try to downplay or minimize it, or we immediately put it back on the other person. Oh, you do too. Like, this is a little thing, but I do that a lot. I've noticed in my own life. And I was hanging out with a girlfriend the other day. We were playing with our kids and we were taking some pictures, and she looked at me in the photo and she was like, oh, you look so beautiful. My default response to that question is to say, oh my gosh, you too. Now, here's the thing. She is beautiful. She is a stunning woman. She did look beautiful that day. But in that moment, I actually stopped myself from immediately just putting the ball back on her, because I didn't feel comfortable with just sitting and you look beautiful. And I just said, thank you so much. Thank you. And that little thing, I bet you're with me here. I know if you're listening, you've done that too. Like, that little thing of just being comfortable being the recipient of a compliment without having to immediately send it back is a little way you can practice worthiness. Now, I'm all about complimenting people. I love it. I do that all the time. But this is about you being able to receive and being comfortable being in the spotlight. So that's the first thing, is number one, you got to feel worthy of it. Number two, if you want to break 6 figures this year, you have to make it a must. And this is something else that I know in my own life is a danger zone that I see for a lot of the women I serve. When you are comfortable, that is the biggest danger zone. It really is, because if anything is not a must for you, you're not going to do it. Like, let's just call it what it is. And it's okay. Like, it's not about making yourself wrong. And so this is where I want to invite you to look at, if you caught this episode title and you were like, oh, I want to make 6 figures this year. Is it a must for you? Like, is it truly a must for you? And if it's not, there's a lot of people out there where that doesn't speak to them and that doesn't appeal to them. And that's totally fine. There's no right or wrong here. But if it is something you want, you have to look at, is it a must for me? Is it something I would burn the ships for? And I would invite you to go back and watch a video I did. I checked the date on it last night, because I realized, oh my gosh, it's been a year since I've done this. But a video on my IGTV from December 26th of 2020, where I had just decided to invest $50,000 in a coach, and I had made $100,000 the year before, but I decided I wanted to go from 6 to 7 figures. And it felt petrifying and it felt so scary, and I didn't have the money to do it, but it was a must for me to go from 6 to 7 figures, because I'm going to talk about this in a moment. Once you get to 6 figures, you realize I am going to need more for the life I want to live in, for the most part. And so I had realized it was time to stop playing small. It was time to break out of what had been stagnation for some time. But what I would invite you to do is watch that video. And it's pretty obvious on my feed, because there's no makeup and I'm sweaty and I'm out of breath because I just stopped working out. And I was just talking about having just made that coaching investment. I was petrified. That is the energy of must. If you want to know what the energy of must is, that is the energy of must. And it's when you say, this is happening no matter what. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care what people think. I don't care what I have to do. This is happening. And it's that level of certainty that when you do that and when you make that decision, your body literally gets the message that, oh, you mean business this time. Like you've said for a long time, you want more. You've said for a long time, you're tired of being in scarcity, but you haven't done anything differently. You haven't actually made a decision yet. So it has to be a decision from the place of, I don't care what it takes. It's happening now. I'm done with it. And then it happens. Then the ideas show up for it to happen. Then your subconscious mind actually gets the memo that, oh, she means business. She's not playing around. So that's the second. It must be a must. The third, I want you to decide that it's easy for you. And this is with every single goal. And I've learned to do this. I've learned little tricks to do this around every financial goal for me. Make it look small. This is actually something I learned from Bob Proctor. I'm going to take a quick coffee sip, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about how to do this. So you will manifest a financial amount or any goal. It doesn't have to necessarily be money, but we're going to talk about money here. When it feels natural for you, when it feels like it's not bigger than you. And we do that by practicing seeing that number, what it's like to feel that number, like getting familiar with it, getting acquainted with it. And if it feels bigger than you, then it's still, it's not that it's distant per se, but it may take a while is what I want to say. So we have to break it down and make it smaller and decide that it's going to be easy. So if you break down $100,000 in a year, I did the math, it's $277 a day. Like that's not a lot of money. Okay. And there's so many ways you could make that. And you could break it down hourly. You could say every hour I'm going to make, if you work an 8-hour day, what is that? 40, I don't know. My math's probably off there. $30 an hour. Like it's not that much. So I want you to break it down and make it small and realize from a mindset standpoint, you have to remember you're a spiritual being having a human experience. There's no amount of money that's bigger than you, only if you think it is. So you've got to practice making it small. And then this is specific to 6 figures. I remember this was when I was maybe earning, I don't know, $12,000 a month, maybe $15,000 a month max. I'd kind of been at that level like for a long time. But you can have a decent life at that level. That's part of why for me, when I'm working with clients, I work in tiers now, but let's get you to $10,000 months, then let's get you to $50,000 months, then let's get you to $100,000 months. At some point, we're going to get you to $1 million months. I got to do that myself first before I can teach you. So that's what I'm working on right now. But working specifically towards that first $10,000 a month, that's really the first benchmark for my clients. And I was there for a long time, and it's a good place to be. Like when you're there, you can live a decent life. You can kind of get what you want, unless you're living in a really affordable area. But you can live a decent life at that level. Like you really can. And so that's a great place to be if you're not there yet. With that being said, I remember being on a call with one of my mentors when I was at that level. And she said something that really got me thinking. She was like, in my experience, to live a good life, a woman needs to be making at least $25,000 a month, at least. And she started rattling off things that I wasn't allowing in my life at that time because I didn't have enough money for it. She started rattling off things like first class travel, spa appointments. I was like, what at that point, my consciousness was like, what a waste of money. And it's something I prioritize now because it makes a big difference in how you show up and how you feel. Living in a certain home, being able to travel places and like have the full experience. I used to travel places, but I would get there on the cheap. And then I wouldn't allow myself to buy what I wanted when I was there. I wouldn't get any souvenirs. I would eat on the cheap, all of it. And it was because there wasn't enough flow in my life. And then she was like, if you want a team helping you. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't even fathom that at that time. But she started rattling it off, and it started to actually be like, yeah, you do need at least that much to live a decent life for most people's standards in our society. So that's where, again, you've got to make your own money rules. Now, for me, if that was what I brought in a month, it would be like, we can't make payroll. So it changes and it shifts over time. So just know that number is going to grow as you grow. But I offer that here in the perspective of, if you've been making $10,000 months big, if you've been making six figures big, I want you to start thinking, wow, that's actually like the bare minimum that I want to be available for in my life. Like, that's the bare minimum that I'm willing to accept this year in my life. So start thinking about it that way and start expanding your consciousness around money and around how much is required for your desires. That's another thing that I will say, many women, especially those in my community who haven't yet hit that $10,000 month, they've kind of shut off their desires in life because they learned at one point they were too much, too big, that it was worthy to scrimp and save and to not really want much. And so that's something that I work on with my clients, is helping them reactivate their desires, because that's a key piece of life. That's a key piece of, especially for us as women, manifesting from our place of desire, not from a place of like, oh, I should, or I have to. It's like, no, what's your desire? And so tapping back into that, you'll start to see, oh yeah, I actually desire and require way more than I've been allowing into my life. So those are your three mindsets. So number one, you are worthy. Number two, make it a must. Number three, decide that it's easy for you. Make it small and make it your bare minimum. All right. That you're willing to allow into your life. From a tactical standpoint, these are the biggest things that I see for women making the biggest difference to getting to that six-figure mark. But again, you can apply this whether you're going to multi-six, seven figures or beyond this year. So the first thing is just visibility, being willing to put yourself out there more. And I would really look at, how often are you doing lives? How often are you putting out a podcast? Are you telling yourself some stories about like, nobody wants to hear from me, nobody is going to value what I have to say, people are going to make fun of me? That's very much typically inner child work that needs to be done. We're not going to get into that a whole lot on this podcast, but that's usually your inner little girl who learned that it wasn't safe to be visible growing up. But that's also something that you can clean up really fast. And I mean, you can go Google inner child work and do some, like, there's so many great resources out there for you. And we have to stop letting that be an excuse that holds us back. So putting yourself out there and make a commitment to yourself, whether it's weekly, I would say if you haven't broken six figures yet, make a commitment that you're going live every day. Like, just do it. Make a commitment that you're going live every single day. You're going to ask for people. You're asking for referrals when you do your lives. You're going to ask for clients when you do your lives, and you're going to do it in a specific way. You're not going to like beg and grovel for clients, but it's like, hey, I'm taking application calls right now, or I'm currently taking new clients for XYZ. Just every day, consistently being there, being visible, building your brand in front of people. And if you have any fear around that, the first thing you need to remember is the very thing that you're afraid of in life is always the thing that's going to unlock your next level. So that means you need to lean into it and just do one. Quick coffee break. And then once you do one, you'll realize, number one, if you haven't been doing them for a long time, nobody's watching anyway. So you get to breathe a sigh of relief. And two, like, we are so much more critical on ourselves than anybody else is. So it's really about getting out of ego, which is always concerned about the self, and into service, and realizing I was put on this planet for a reason. There are people who need what I have, whether you're working for a company or whether you're running your own business, and I'm going to show up and I'm going to be of service to them. And I'm going to give other people permission by seeing me show up and maybe fumble through things and not be perfect and that being okay. It's going to give them permission to actually be human and to do the same. And they're going to love me even more for it. So that's the first thing, is making a schedule and making a commitment of how often you're going to be visible. And that also is, get in front of other people who have your target audience. So joint lives, like make a list of joint lives or podcasts you're going to reach out to and pitch yourself to be in front of their audiences in January and February of this year, and just like do it. The second, prioritizing outbound connection and doing this first thing in the day before you do anything else. So very simple stuff here. All right. But this is important because when something feels nebulous, when it feels vague, we can kind of just like, I don't know what the activity is around this. So I'm just not going to do any. So if you don't know yet what your numbers are for your business or for your sales, reverse engineer the numbers. So you're going to look at your sales process and you're going to say, what's every touch point in my sales process from A to Z, whether it starts with you putting out a live, whether it starts with you doing DMs, and then whether maybe it's a sales call, maybe it's sending people to a sales page, whatever it is, but you're going to reverse engineer your process. And then you're going to, from there, say, okay, with the current numbers that I have, how many of each step along the way do I need to do to land one client? And I know it's different for every client, but I just want you to look at, on average in this past year, how many touch points were required each step of the way to get someone to the next step. And then how many, if you do sales calls, like how many sales conversations or discovery calls did you need to have to book one client? If you don't know yet, if you're launching something new and you don't have numbers yet, it's going to vary. You're really just going to have to track. So I would start tracking to see, but I would say on average, you're going to be anywhere from probably when you're decent, like 1 out of 3 sales conversations will close, maybe more, maybe less. But I would say I'm always very conservative when I'm projecting numbers. And I would say if you're just starting and you have no idea, assume you're going to need to actually offer your service to 10 people for one of them to say yes. And then you can reverse it and say, if I want 4 clients this month, that means I need 40 sales conversations, which maybe that sounds like a lot, but I mean, in a week, if you're working a 5-day week, that's 4 a day. Is that math even right? Yes, I think so. No, that's 2 a day. Wow. Apparently today is not my math day. I'm usually pretty good at math in my head. 2 a day. That's not that much. So, and maybe that math is even wrong. I don't know. Nobody DM me and tell me if that was wrong. You do the math on your own and see. But then you can reverse it more from there. Okay, how many, out of the appointments I book, how many of them keep versus how many of them cancel? Because you got to account for that too. And then how many conversations or texts do I need to send to book an appointment? And you reverse the numbers. And then every morning before you do anything else, this is just like your exercise. If you're like me, if you don't work out in the morning, you are fooling yourself that it's going to happen later in the day. And you feel better if you do it in the morning. So your sales outreach is going to be just like your exercise. Before you hop in your inboxes, before you're on Instagram, before you're scrolling, you are going to do your outbound contacts and you're going to send your DMs. You're going to invite people to discovery calls with you. You're going to ask for referrals and you're going to say, my metric is I'm doing X amount. So again, reverse your numbers. And then, I need to do however much outreach every day to hit this goal. And then you're just going to track it and you'll often find you need to do less, but do not shortchange yourself at first. The only person you're shortchanging is yourself if you cut down on your numbers. All I'm saying is as you go, you're going to get better and you won't need to do as much. But to start, I want you to be super conservative until you know what your numbers are. And I would give yourself, 2 to 6 months to really say okay, I can bank on these numbers, more than 2, probably at least 3 to 6 months. So you can adjust it over time, but before you do anything else, you're going to do that outbound activity. And here is what I know. When you get that, that particle flow, when you start really pumping energy into your outreach in the mornings into your business, into your sales, you just watch what happens. Now you got to give yourself a little bit of lag time because it's kind of like you're planting a seed, right? So when you plant a seed, it doesn't just pop up immediately into a flower. It takes however long the germination period of that seed is, anywhere from a couple weeks to a couple months, depending on what it is. So just know you're going to need to do that consistently. It's like you're watering a garden before you start to see the results. But I promise you, if you do that consistently for a month, watch where you will be in a radically different place come February. If you start doing this in January or whatever month you're listening to this to, and it's a gift to yourself. Like you're the only person you're, for lack of better words, screwing over if you're not doing this every day. So just make a commitment to do it and then give yourself rewards along the way that are based on activity, not based on results. And this is important because when we get too attached to the results and we only reward the results, then it's like we can't fully control the results. That's why we want to be a little extra with compensating for, like probably doing a little more than you may need to do to hit that number, especially at the beginning. But when we reward the activity instead of the result, it gets to be fun. And I do this too. We've got a great business now. I've got a team who's helping me with things like my activity has changed from what it used to be when I was working in corporate sales, but I still do outbound contacts and I still do outreach, and it's part of every week for me because it's what keeps the business running and flowing. And I reward my activity, like, especially if there's something that feels, now it feels good. It feels fun to do it. So I don't find that I have to like get myself over a hump. But I remember earlier this year, I was doing outreach for something and it was like, I don't know, something like 50 outreaches needed to be done. And it just felt heavy. It was like, oh, this doesn't feel like the thing I want to do more than anything else in the world right now, which, that's another conversation for another time about how to get out of that mindset. But what I did do is I gave myself a reward, and it was a little thing. It was not like I'm going to go buy a new car when I do this outreach, because I do stuff like that, like when the money is in the bank. But it was, at the time, it was early fall, and I'm a fall girl. There were pumpkin muffins at the local bakery. And I don't do a lot of muffins or like carby, sugary food just because it doesn't make me feel good. But those pumpkin muffins smelled so good every time I would walk by. And I made a little deal with myself and I said, when this is done, Elyse, you're getting a pumpkin muffin. And I got my little scratch pad out and I would just do the hash marks, like 1 outreach, 2 outreaches, 3 outreaches, and just track them. And oh, that muffin tasted so good when it was done. And I let myself get it right away. It wasn't like, oh, you've got to wait for a sale to come in before it happens. It was no, like, I want to reward you right now in this moment for doing this. And of course, down the road, more sales came in from that activity and the financial reward was there too. But rewarding, look at what are rewards you can give yourself now that fit within your budget, that are fun, and that you can control the outcome of. So maybe it's buying yourself flowers. Maybe it's buying yourself a cookie. Maybe it's booking a spa appointment. Maybe it's something like, I don't know, or calling a friend. Like, what is it that you're going to give yourself as a reward for the effort you just put in, knowing that it will pay off, but that because we live in time lag, there's a period of time where, again, it's like you just planted a ton of seeds and that's so great. So now you're going to keep tending them. You're going to keep watering them. You're going to keep planting more. And in the meantime, you're going to enjoy the process while those seeds come up. So that's the second, but do it first thing in the morning before you get into other things. This is the best thing you can do for yourself, because the energy that you're going to carry with you through the rest of the day as someone who just did that is so powerful. Your confidence is going to be so high. You're going to be so proud of yourself, and everything else will go better for you in the day as well. The third piece that I would look at if I were wanting to get to my first 6 figures and I had control over pricing. So this is where, if you're in sales working for someone else, we can't control this as much, but we can control often who we're targeting and what we're focusing on selling. So you can kind of tweak this and apply this whether you're an entrepreneur or in sales, but are your prices high enough? And I have a lot of women come into the community where it's like they're trying to hit six figures, but they're selling like $100 thing and they don't have a big audience. That's going to usually take a while. So I would focus on looking at, and it's with pricing, it's always relative. It's always what will the market bear and what feels good to you energetically. But more often than not, I find that people are way underpricing themselves and undervaluing themselves, which comes back to the self-worth piece. And so really looking at like, am I charging enough for what I'm doing? And, we had a woman in our community, in our 10K club, who had recently started a business and was she had left her previous job as well, and it was like she launched a new program, a new package, $7,500 for the coaching with her, and within a week or two she signed a $7,500 client. If she'd been priced at $750, it would have taken her 10 clients to get there, but because she priced what she was actually worth, she got right back up to where she needed to be, like boom, like that, by pricing her worth. So I want you to start raising your standards. I want you to start thinking higher of yourself. The way that I always think about it is, do I feel confident that someone can receive at least 10 times the value of what I'm charging for this if they implement what we're talking about? And if it's a yes to that, then awesome. Like, then I feel good about my price. And I, in my own life, I keep upping my prices too, because I keep giving more value and becoming better as a leader, as a coach, all of it. So you want to consistently, like at least every year, if not more often, look at your pricing and make sure you're pricing enough. But it can make a big difference if you're charging $1,000 versus if you're charging $2,500 to hit that $10,000 month. Like, it's a big difference. So look at your pricing, look at, are you charging enough? Charge what you feel good about. So if you don't feel good about it, your clients won't either. So that's important to know. You got to feel good about it and confident in it, because that will translate to your clients. But again, more often than not, I see women way undervaluing themselves and thinking no one's going to buy from them, when in reality, people don't buy because the prices are so low. It freaks them out. They're like, there's something wrong with this. And that's always a red flag for me when I'm talking to a service provider. And I can guarantee you it is for your clients too, if you're charging too little. So those are your three tactical. Put yourself out there. So commit to a schedule for your visibility, which is more your marketing, which is ultimately going to create inbound lead flow. But simultaneously, number two, you've got to prioritize your outbound connection and figure out what your numbers are for how much direct outreach you're going to do every day, inviting clients to work with you, apply for a discovery call, et cetera. And then number three, look at, are my prices high enough? Can I make a small tweak and generate way more with the same amount of activity? So I hope that served you. I want to hear from you. What are you going to be implementing? So take a screenshot of this, tag me on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, wherever. I'm at Elyse Archer everywhere, and let me know, what are you going to be implementing this year? And I also want to invite you, if this is resonating with you, I want to invite you to register for a live workshop that I'm hosting in January. And it's all about helping you hit your first six figures in 2022. And here's something else that I'll say is, it's not about, you've got to invest a ton of money in this funnel, or even though today we talked about outbound reaches, it's not about making more outreaches. It's literally about how to do it the feminine way. And it's going to be a faster and easier way than you ever thought possible, because I'm going to teach you how to do it using your female superpowers that usually we don't bring into business if we haven't been taught how to do it. And the women who have learned this content from me in this past year have literally gone on to leave dead-end job situations and launch businesses that cash flow $10,000 a month in just a few months, have gone from 80,000 in 1 year to over 2 million the next year. Like, it's just wild what women are doing when they learn this information. It's so important. It's so different as well from what you've been taught before. And it's just going to be me pouring into you, coaching you, and giving you everything you need to break six figures and beyond in 2022. So get registered now, elisearcher.com/workshop, elisearcher.com/workshop for that training. It's going to be phenomenal. You can grab more details there. And I can't wait to see you there. All right, my friend, thank you so much for listening today. I know, as always, how grateful I am for you. I want to support you. If you have questions on anything we talked about today, send me a DM. Again, I'm at Elyse Archer on all social. I want to support you. I'm so excited to be in this new year with you and to have you in the community as we go into the new year. And I am just cheering you on as always. All right. I can't wait to see you at the workshop. Again, elisearcher.com/workshop. I'll see you there. Take care. Bye-bye.